You're listening to iCannabisRadio.com.
Right, we're back for another edition of TUC Radio. So our guests are not yet arrived. Our Bongathon friends are supposed to be here. They haven't yet come, but that's okay because there's a lot of crazy news going on out there. So I want to run through it. I have our intern Gabe joining me on the mic because I don't like to just talk to nothing.
Yeah,
it feels narcissistic.
Totally,
doesn't it? Right?
I go to radios. I go to Colorado Media School in Belmar, and that's one of the hardest things to do. They say is have a show by yourself.
Totally. And if this was all I did, I would have I would probably have a huge, awesome outline mapped out. But this is like one of those things that I run in here usually, or if I am here early, I'm already doing other work to catch up, and then
But luckily, there's so much going on in the marijuana world. There
kind of is.
You can just log on to Facebook and see something about it every day.
Yeah.
A new ballot or measurement.
Well, so we got a lot of news that we're going to run through. Just quick touch on different headlines that you guys can find. Anybody can find this on the web, but we like to do it ahead of time and just talk about it. On the funny side, I think it's funny. In Ottumwa, Iowa, a couple claims that they were served marijuana in their burgers. And so they went back and complained to management. They called the police, and it's a big deal. So they're not sure. They said it's consistent with what we think is marijuana. The police said there, and we're gonna go take it for testing. Which I'm like, really? Do you have to take it for testing? Can't you tell if it is or not? But maybe not. Maybe once you
could be synthetic.
There you go. And maybe maybe some of the chemicals that they put in McDonald's food is masking
spice
the smell
or whatever
it is.
Was it? It was a McDonald's.
It was a McDonald's. So that's a real Happy Meal if it was. Right?
Probably trying to
be funny. Exactly.
Exactly.
That's exactly. You're going to get some of this, I think, where you're going to have we're getting wider acceptance when it comes to cannabis. So there's going to be more people who are going to be feeling more comfortable doing stunts like this that they think are funny. But it's not much different from if somebody was spiking somebody's Coke there with vodka. Mm-hmm. It's just come on. Everybody grow up a little bit out there. And I'm scared enough to go to drive-thrus, by the way, because you never know what's going on back there
with all the stuff coming out about GMOs, all that stuff. I just try to stay away from
it. GMOs, and then you have generally a younger workforce in a fast food joint, and they tend to do
my generation
dumber things and do some pranks. And I'm always like, what is going on? You always hear those stories like, there was
the nasty ones.
Yeah,
there's
very
nasty ones. I don't even want to get into.
Yeah, but it makes you not want to go to a fast food place ever.
Yeah,
again, unless you're really high, and then you just can't help it because you have the munchies and it's all that's open. But I thought that was kind of an interesting little, all right. So another stunt being pulled, and it just shows an example,
Pot
I think.
in the hamburgers.
Pot in your hamburgers.
In the McDouble.
Yeah. Also on the news, and this is kind of interesting and not surprising, really. You've been kind of seeing this trend, but they're looking at changing the rules in the NFL for drug abuse. And when they talk about drug, they're talking about marijuana as well. And raising the threshold is what they said.
Yeah, we talked about this on I have a sports talk show I do on Go Mile High.
Well, hey.
Tuesdays 2 to 4. I'm thinking my other show.
Right on. No, plug it. You're on, man. Use it.
Yeah, but we talked all about this because Josh Gordon this year,
who is an amazing wide receiver,
the top wide receiver in the game besides maybe our receiver Demaryius Thomas or Calvin Johnson with the Lions.
Yeah.
He's suspended for the full year, and last year Von Miller was suspended for the full year, and it just keeps happening. And they're messing up their product. You can't.
They are. He is a product.
Take out your best players, and meanwhile, there's players like Aldon Smith, who's on the 49ers. He's been cited for having huge parties and people getting stabbed at his house and shootings and stuff. And he'll come back the same year because he went to quote unquote rehab.
Well, maybe they're going to start thinking it's a performance enhancer. Because Josh Gordon had an unbelievable year last year. Kind of blew the doors off everything. He had promised the years before. He was suspended for the first 6 weeks, I think it was. Mm-hmm. Right? Was it 6 weeks?
Yeah.
And then he just came out of the gun. It was one of those if you're a fantasy player.
He had 250-yard games in a row or something.
Ridiculous.
First time ever.
Ridiculous.
It was crazy, but
yeah.
Yeah,
and then you have someone like Ricky Williams, who's a great running back in his heyday, and then marijuana.
I was looking at
suspended.
a list of all the influential people who have smoked pot, like Steve Jobs. He smoked pot.
We actually covered this in this issue of the magazine, which, I happen to have an issue. We should get that on camera.
I grabbed it at my local dispensary.
Did you?
The other day. Flipped through it. But yeah, Steve Jobs smoked pot. But back to the football. They're fucking up their product. They are. They can't take their best players out and then let the people who are stabbing people come back the same year because they go to rehab or whatever. It just makes them look bad.
Right. And Roger Goodell, near the end of last year, I think it was, or maybe it was the beginning of this year, had made the statement that, they would be reconsidering, and I'm totally paraphrasing now, but they were basically reconsidering if you're in a state that's legal marijuana and
and then they were going to reconsider it for medicinal benefits as well, but then they come up with Josh Gordon being...
Well, he's not in a state that's legal, though, either. But but he was suspended with the rules that existed now.
And I think these guys are pounding into each other over and over again. It's the best anti-inflammatory on the planet.
Would you rather them addicted to opiates?
Yeah, or taking the aspirin or ibuprofen that's bad for your kidneys.
I've heard on very good... from some very good sources, and I'm not going to name names of prominent NFL players, but very prominent NFL players have been known to smoke cannabis in the off season. And so because of this, it's like, and these guys are at the top of the level.
Well, everybody has their vice. Why would you want these guys going to the club?
You want them to be an alcoholic?
Jackasses?
You want them to be an alcoholic? You want them, like I said, you want them addicted to painkillers, or do you want them to be able to utilize
these
cannabis?
Stories of DUIs and NFL players every single week.
Yep.
And would you rather them go party, which I'm fine with, but then there's a free driver service in the NFL, so I don't know why they have to drive. You're driving your Porsche,
exactly.
Your
That's what it is.
Your $1 million Porsche at night. You're the only car out there.
Do they have a free driving service in the NFL?
Yes.
I had no idea. So, like any NFL player at any time has a driver, and the NFL fronts the bill.
He could text his coach, say, I'm at blah blah blah.
Why does he have to text his coach?
It probably doesn't have to be his coach.
Okay,
probably
just
somebody with the organization.
Wouldn't you be tired if you're the coach? You're just like, dude, and they're like, I don't want to call the coach. That sucks. You should just be able to call the service directly. Like there should be a special number, whatever.
But they do have this.
That's awesome. See, that is actually something. You can say what you want.
So
about
there's
the
no
NFL
reason
policies,
to have DUIs, but
there's no reason for it.
Would you rather them drink or smoke pot? Remember, there were 2 billboards up in New York about pot during the Super Bowl.
Yes, there were.
So I think it's all changing towards the right direction in the NFL, especially now after you say they're going to re-look at it.
But not fast enough for Josh Gordon, because one of the things they say in this is that he's still going to have the year suspension, which sucks because they're taking this guy out on his prime, and if they're looking at readjusting the rules, why can't I guarantee you his people are probably going to file an appeal because of this.
It automatically happens almost these days.
Yeah, it does. They always appeal for a lower sentence and all of that. It's like
it wasn't he didn't test positive, it was just diluted, so
Did they say how much he tested for?
No.
I'm curious.
That's just an excuse they use every single time.
Yeah. But, at least you're seeing him moving forward, I think, to some extent. I'm interested in seeing what other professional leagues do to follow suit, because I'm not quite sure. Have you kept up with the NBA?
Shaq has said that like 95% of the NBA smokes pot.
Yeah, probably.
And I heard all those Laker teams through the 80s were smoking pot before their games and stuff.
Well, it's one of those things, too, when you think about it, where it's like, especially on basketball, each player is more valuable than there are certain players that are very valuable in football, obviously, too. Mm-hmm. And imagine if this had happened to Peyton Manning and people would be like really going nuts about this.
Peyton got smoking weed.
Right. If he had got caught like Josh Gordon did, would he have the same sentence? I mean, those are things you got to ask, though. It's like, what level of player are you, and would you get?
He's pretty a high-profile player,
exactly.
But Peyton is the face of like the NFL, so I can't even.
You can't even comprehend that happening.
Yeah. But yeah, I hope the NFL changes their policy. especially in states like Colorado and Washington.
Well, it wouldn't be fair, honestly. I mean, for the NFL players, if they change their policy and be like, well, if it's legal in that state, then we'll allow it. Maybe it will, because then maybe you'll start having other states being like, well, that's unfair. Let our guys smoke some shit. So I mean, it would be interesting to see, or would it just be something where it would be like it would go down to a fine system where it's like, hey, if you want to smoke weed, every time we test positive, you have to pay us like $50,000. So you're paying the price of it, but at least you get to still play.
That's totally worth it. I was thinking more like a couple thousand, but the way these
I don't
guys
know, whatever,
get paid,
whatever. Yeah, the way they get paid, but
if you make it enough to hurt their pocket enough, so they won't do it at least during the season.
right. Even though they should be able to do it during the season. That's the thing. I mean, that's when they need it the most. And if they're doing that, then they're probably not drinking. That's the other thing.
It's all about how the NFL wants to look, and we talked about this on my show. You know, Michael Sam, the gay football player.
Yeah, did he get picked yet?
Yeah, he got picked
Fourth round?
The 7th round.
7th round.
Like 6 picks away from being not taken.
Who picked him up?
The Rams. We think the NFL like told Jeff Fisher and his people, you better draft this dude so we don't look, because they look so bad.
So how messed up is it that he
was a co-SEC Defensive Player of the Year.
Well, my understanding was he was a 3rd round pick. He was most likely a 3rd round pick, right? But that's great. You know,
no SEC Defensive Player of the Year has ever fallen below the 4th round. His co-partner, the guy C.J. Mosley, the Broncos almost moved up to take. He got picked like 13th.
But it gets to that point, though, also, if you're Jeff Fisher and it's like your last pick, you're like, dude, this guy is still here.
But Jeff Fisher is a straightforward thinking dude. He's a cool dude.
But why wasn't he picked a little earlier?
Exactly.
You know, because here's the other thing to know. The team that picks him, and the Rams now picked him, the teams that picked the first openly gay player are going to have a huge gay following.
Oh, he's the number 2 jersey sales of rookies besides Johnny Football.
See? That's crazy. You know, what? I mean, and why wouldn't they look...
And he's also doing like this... He's kind of being like a gay rights activist, kind of. He wore his bright pink shirt to his...
Did he really?
At the NFL draft and made out with his boyfriend
Holy
when
crap.
he got picked.
Wow.
On that, I think that's the first time on live TV that's ever
Good
happened.
for him, man. Good for him.
And it was the NFL who did it out of anybody, so that's kind of crazy to think
Well, I don't
about.
think they had a chance. They didn't know he was going to do it, probably.
He just jumped up
it's going to be. I'm really excited to watch this story, and I hope that he doesn't like follow suit with like the likes of Jackie Robinson, where he was not loved in his locker room or anything like that. I hope people can get past that.
So the NFL's kind of trying to not be so old fashioned.
They have to be. They made
kind
a huge
of bringing
move.
the pot thing around and being more.
They're smart. The NFL, more than any other professional franchise, looks at.
Their PR.
They look at their PR. They have a great firm on that. They look at, okay, what are the demographics of the country? Who are the young demographics? How do they think? Because we want the fans of the future as well. And so how do we help work and create that? So one of the things that they did a very smart move on in the last 10 years or so is they went after women. And they, now they have.
Oh
women,
yeah, they have the women's clothing.
They
lines.
do, and you know what?
And they panned like Tony Romo's girlfriend every time they show Tony Romo get sacked. So
Right.
that kind of goes towards.
Well, yeah,
and
that goes
stuff like
towards
that.
it. But they do. They go out. They try to appeal to both sexes now, and they've done a very good job of it because guys are going to love it for the game, and girls love it for the game now too. I think they get to know the game, and because they've been working to appeal to them. So it's not surprising for them to go to this point, and and have somebody finally be openly gay and be comfortable with it. I think the time is right. I mean, it should have happened earlier, but
he's probably not the first gay player. He's just the first openly.
No, he's just the first openly gay player. There are a lot of prominent gay players that there are theories on. Hey, I think he was gay, or I think he's gay.
People say Troy Aikman might have been gay.
Jerry Rice. No, that's been
San
said
Francisco.
as well. So maybe it's because of San Francisco. I don't know, but I've heard that many
I
times.
thought Michael Sam would take him in the 7th round.
But
San Francisco would take Michael
I'm just surprised nobody took him in the 5th to the 7th round if he was supposedly that good.
That's why I think the NFL said. I think the whole NFL was just not going to take him because it's the chemistry of a locker room.
I sincerely hope that this guy comes out and just crushes it. I really
That'd
do.
be awesome.
It would be awesome if he just came out and crushed it. And you know what? He has put that kind of pressure on himself, too, in a sense. That he's got to be able to just perform really, really well consistently because most likely if he doesn't, he could lose his job. They'll be like, it's not worth it for all that kind of crazy PR. I don't know. But the amount of money the Rams are probably making on the royalties on those shirts is probably just fine.
Oh, yeah, and he might not even make the roster. He probably will, but as a 7th-round pick, it's possible he could get cut.
It doesn't look good. It doesn't look good.
But if they've already sold their jerseys, they made their revenue.
Exactly.
And
they're kind of in it now. They're kind of in it now.
There's a bunch of proud gay people who are going to wear those jerseys, those Sam jerseys, proudly.
Well, and it's now you're at a point where if you don't follow through, he's going to make the team, because if they don't follow through, unless he gets injured or something crazy happens or whatever, but, if they don't follow through and put him on the roster, they're going to now not have as many, not just fans, but a lot of anti-fans. So that's the other thing that they have to do. It's a little delicate balance to play.
Yeah.
So maybe that's...
It was a gutsy move.
Yeah.
So that's why I thought the NFL might have been a part of it, but the Stan Kroenke, who owns the Nuggets and the Avs, the Pepsi Center teams, he's a cool dude, and the head coach, Jeff Fisher, he's a straightforward thinking dude, so it's possible they could have done it on their own.
It is possible they could have done it on their own. You're absolutely right. I know. Any
other cannabis news?
Of course there is, but we have to go on a break real quick, so as soon as we get back, we're going to talk about marijuana patients, being prosecuted still.
Uh-oh.
New things are here from Incredibles. Gummies! Our new gummies come 2 to a pack. Each 2-pack contains 100 milligrams of the finest medicine around. What's more, each 50 milligram infused gummy disc is fortified with 100 milligrams of vitamin C for an extra healthful kick. Available in black cherry, green apple, orange strawberry, blue raspberry, and strawberry banana. Gummies, new from Incredibles. Same great flavors, brand new shape, and now fortified with vitamin C.
The Law Office of Edson, Mayton, and Matz provides criminal defense, family law, medical marijuana defense, and advice about setting up and running a medical marijuana center, optional premises cultivation operation, and infused product manufacturing businesses throughout the state of Colorado. We're focused on providing high-quality service and customer satisfaction. We will do everything we can to meet your expectations. WarrenEdson.com. Edson, Mayton, and Matz in Denver, 303-831-8188, and in Aspen, 970-948-7183. WarrenEdson.com.
I'm Gary Johnson, and you're listening to iCannabis Radio, and I want to say, talk it up, Colorado.
All right, we're back, and I lost my story. Here it is. All right, so the feds in Spokane, Washington, there's this family that was growing. They were growing something like 70 plants, and the state came in. They were in it. 45 plants is the limit, and they were cooking with it, making infused butter, and they all had various ailments that they were using this for. I'm not going to get too much into all those details, but basically, this guy's 70-year-old retired truck driver named Larry Harvey, and the DEA came in after the state took out the extra plants he had and went down to the 45 plants that were within their limit, and the DEA came in and is prosecuting them for intent to distribute, and also he had guns. He had some guns because they have, like, they say they live in like a rural area,
boonies.
And they have to deal with cougars and bears and stuff like that. So they have guns there for hunting, and sometimes they hunt there on their own land and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, because of that, they could face 10 years to life in prison.
That's a big ratio.
Isn't that crazy? Well, because it depends on how many counts they do, if they're consecutive, or if they want to, concurrently, run those sentences, stuff like that. And so it all depends on how it's going to come out, and it's been postponed until July 28th. In the meanwhile, there's going to be 8 licensed pot shops that will be open for business before this trial goes on. And so these guys are growing legal operations. This guy was growing legally as a patient within his limit. Now, the feds aren't going after the businesses, which I'm glad they're not going after the businesses and all that. But why are you going after this 70-year-old dude who, obviously, when you look at the numbers they have, if it's like 5 people there, and they're making butter, they're making all, oils or whatever for all of their ailments, they're going through 45 plants between that many people. So, because when you use edibles, you consume more cannabis. So you have to get more plants. That's why there's a different plant count out here if they feel like you need to medicate edibly.
Is the state limit on plants in Washington? Where did you say it was?
45.
What? You
45
said
plants.
Washington or California?
This is Washington.
Washington.
This is Spokane, Washington.
Do you know the amount of plants per patient?
I'm not sure. It doesn't go into that. This is reported by Forbes that I'm reading here.
Well, if they all have their med card, they
were legal.
Legit.
Exactly. So they weren't, and that's the thing, is the state came in, took some plants away because they said, oh, well, you're overgrowing, and they didn't make a big deal about it, actually, and they let them down to their 45 plants. So fine, maybe they were overgrowing a little bit.
A teeny bit, but not like that.
It was like something like maybe 12 plants, I think it was, or something. Anyway, so they're growing within their limit in the state law. But yet the feds are coming in and going after these individual users. This is actually kind of a story that could get really big.
Yeah, this could get very big.
Because again, it's like, why are you need to define what you're doing there on the federal side, DEA. Are you just going after this guy because he's an easy target? I mean, but don't they understand how unpopular going after somebody like this guy would be?
A 70-year-old man.
70-year-old retired truck driver.
Ailments.
Yeah. I mean, I can imagine being a truck driver, how bad your back would be on a regular basis, the amount of pain you'd have.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense to me why the feds would get involved. This is something that we've kind of been waiting to happen. Like
it really is. It really is.
The feds to finally say, this is no good. Weed's bad.
It's going against the letter from the Department of Justice. It's going against what the DOJ said, coming from Eric Holder, and then the, God, why am I blanking on the name? I know the name. But the memo that came out from his assistant, the Holder memo? Yeah. But that said, as long as you're within the regulations and the businesses are in regulations, we're not going to mess with you. And they were going more about businesses. They did say that in the memo from my memory. So, but I think it's really messed up because you think if you're not going to go after businesses who are doing a large-scale operation, why would you go after personal consumption, especially if they're still legal? Within the state law.
It is good they don't go after the businesses. You would think they would rather go after the business than the individual.
You would think that, actually. That's the thing that's what's intriguing.
They wouldn't look as bad if they go after the business.
It wouldn't look as bad. That's but
because they did that in Cali a bunch too.
And they've done it. But the thing again, where the business is operating under federal law, I mean under the proper state regulations as well. So those are the questions. And I know in some in Cali they weren't, but Cali's also kind of a hodgepodge right now.
It's all
regulation.
weird.
It's very messed up there. It's just not fluent. I mean, not fluid the way they have it. It's not across the whole state. It's by municipality, so it
They're
makes
still
it really
getting over
confusing.
Arnie's scandal.
Yeah, yeah. But so this is a big story. I think that could really get some traction, hopefully, and we're looking at talking about this in our next issue because this is ridiculous that they're going after these guys. It really is. I find it very upsetting that they're going after a family that is in a legal state. Again, if they were in like a state that was illegal, I'm not saying that I would be happy about it and I would still think it was messed up.
So a truck driver and some of his hippie friends are chilling in some rural part of Washington growing some plants.
That's it.
For their ailments.
For their ailments.
To sale.
Not for sale. There was no proof of any sale from what I'm reading. Of course, they say it's intent to distribute. When you grow this much, it's showing intent to distribute, which obviously it's not yet. I mean, I'm not saying that they weren't distributing. I don't know.
I could see
but
how
it doesn't
if you
mean that they were
you weren't
distributing.
educated about marijuana and saw this huge
Well, we're
grow,
talking about the
you might
DEA. The
think
DEA is pretty much like by choice not educated about marijuana. I mean, they're still upset about the hemp thing, and I do want to get into some hemp stories too. But
awesome.
But I do have. Let's see. Before we get into that, a little quick headline in marijuana news. This is reported by the Oregonian that New York City is on track to arrest more than 28,000 low-level cannabis offenders. That's amazing to me. I mean, New York, I lived in New York, and New York is one of those places that you could literally, when I lived there, you could walk by some cops with a lit joint as long as you just put it down, and they may very well just ignore you because they just didn't want to mess with it.
They got real shit
to deal with. But now you're talking about, I know there's millions of people in New York, but you're talking about 28,000 arrests for low-level pot offenders.
Don't they have medical in New York?
No.
I thought they had a low, I don't know.
No, they don't.
But
New York's not legal yet. It's been talked about. It's been talked about, but it's not legal yet.
This makes no sense.
Doesn't
Why?
It doesn't.
It's just
28,000. You know how many people that you're crowding your jails for whatever time period that they're in there for. And in some of these guys, if it's low level, I'm assuming it's either, they get a fine and paid and get out, or they're there for a span of days.
2 or 3 days.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe
that's what I'm getting. Maybe it's
hours.
more than that. Maybe it's more than that. I don't know we'll have to look into what that is.
It's just crazy to think sitting where I'm at in Colorado.
that you could be arrested for just being a low-level pot offender on a regular basis, but
just because I'm in a different location.
And New York was always, I felt, being more progressive, and maybe that was when I lived there, which was a long time ago. It was almost 10 years ago. But it's still, it was easy. It was really, when I lived in New York, it was kind of awesome. The first thing I did, I dropped my bags off in my apartment, and my roommate who lived there for a year, and he's like, dude, the first thing you need to know about New York.
What part of New York? Like
Upper
the
West
city?
Side. Upper West Side.
The city?
Manhattan. Yep.
My dad's from Long Island.
Right on. It was right off of 72nd and Central Park. It was a great location. I had a good deal. But anyway, he's like, if you worked from your home, you would never have to leave it because anything you can have delivered to you and done for you, your laundry, convenience store, buying you cigarettes, whatever you wanted. And then he makes a phone call, and we get a bicycle messenger show up. It's very much like Half Baked, but it was before Half Baked. And he comes up, and he has like multiple strains. And he's just like, well, which one do you want to taste? So we could taste it. And then, but we got a free tasting, and then we would pick something. So,
that's awesome.
So my roommate Rich and I, he's written for me as well, actually, from the Hemp Connoisseur. He lives in Amsterdam now, so biggest pothead I ever met, actually. But so anyway, we'd usually taste one and then buy another one, and then probably to buy the next one. The next time we'd buy the one we tasted, and they always had like a selection of 5. It was pretty awesome, actually. And they were always there within 15 minutes. And the way this worked was, you would call this number, and then they would know who you were because of where you lived, because it was only by referral. This group, and then every few months, one time for they would call up and they'd be like, we're taking the next 3 months off, and they change their number, and what they do is they'll call you back if they liked you as a customer, and you were, and they would go small again. So they would take 3 months off, and then they would call their customers.
And would they have to re-up again and stuff?
Yeah,
they would, 3 months.
Yeah, they would
probably.
It was 3 months, but it was more like, I think it was more like they just took a break and they closed up shop and then they started another thing. And I think they do this every year or so.
That's awesome.
It was a great system. And then what happened is they got rid of undesirables who didn't know how to contact them anymore because they had a different number, and they would contact us and say, "We're ready, we're back in this." It was awesome.
That's a great plan.
So the day we got called back was the coolest day ever because it was the best service. They had the best bud. When they called back, we're like, "We're on, we're in."
They're like, "Yo, you're in."
We're still on the island. Not that there was Survivor.
I want Colorado to get to that point where you can get it pod delivered.
But that's what I'm saying.
Without the price being ridiculous.
They did attempt that for a while, and then they banned that. That was in the true Wild West. We're not really in the Wild West anymore. But yeah, they banned that. But the point I'm making with the story, besides I just love reliving that, is the fact that New York, from my experience, was always super progressive as far as looking the other way, including New York cops.
Who's the New Jersey governor? I'm spacing it right now.
Steve Christie.
Yeah, Christie. Did you hear about
Chris Christie? I said
Chris Christie. Did you hear about what he said about Colorado? He's like,
oh, please tell.
He was like, I don't know why. I posted it on the iCannabis Facebook right now. You can look it up. But he was like, I don't know why you would want to glorify doing drugs and make revenue after doing drugs and stuff. This was around 420. And so Hickenlooper kind of gave shots back at him.
Really? What did he say?
Funny. I don't really remember.
I'm going to have to look that
He was
up.
like, he's like, I love New York. My wife's from New Jersey. But there's some things about the lifestyle in New York that you can't beat compared to Colorado.
Right.
The fresh air, blah, blah, blah. And he just basically...
That's funny.
Or it was New Jersey, not even New
fresh
York.
air was a sign. He was like, fresh air. That's great about Colorado that you can't beat because you don't have it. No, seriously, I think there was some veiled little it'd be kind of. I have to read that. I'm looking forward to reading that. Anyway, that was just a quick little, it was supposed, headline in New York, which I find very disappointing. But on the flip side, in Colorado, marijuana sales are up. Big surprise there, and crime is down. So that's something I want to say. So in this report was done by the Liberty Voice, but that I'm reading from right now, and it says that compared to the January and April period from 2013, 2014 has seen an overall reduction in both violent and property crimes since legalizing marijuana. It strikes down the statements made by the opponents of the bill that legalizing of the drug would lead to an increase in crime in the state.
Yeah, it wasn't like the police chief who said that.
No, this was actually reported. I have to find the source here of where this came. Well, the website I'm reading this off of is the Liberty Voice, and they're on GuardianLV.com. Yeah, I'm trying to find the source of this, but anyway, there's also saying notable reductions were seen in homicide. Homicide is down 52%.
Oh my God.
Isn't that crazy? In that same time period from last year. And it says theft from motor vehicles is down by 36%, and all forms of violent crime saw a reduction in their incidents over the same period.
I knew smoking pot would make people chill out, but I didn't think it would make the stone cold killers chill out to 50% less homicide rate. That's awesome.
Isn't that crazy? There's also been, job growth, because there are at least 13 different jobs that have been created by the industry, ranging from marijuana journalists, which
there's so many
to grow site operators, and these are all. That's what they're mentioning again in this source. But the increase for employment has been a boost for students. They've said a lot of students are working, which is true. It helps them cover tuition costs, and this is a study published by Humboldt University, by the way. It says with the cannabis business projected to keep growing, the need for jobs from the industry is going to continue to expand as well. So, wow, hey, legalize marijuana, create jobs, stimulate the economy, and create profits for the state as well. Amazing.
You lower the amount of homicides and you create more jobs.
And by the way, generally speaking, and I want to speak to this because the federal government just the Republicans, the GOP, basically just blasted the raise of minimum wage to $10.10 an hour. Marijuana employees generally make $10 to $12 an hour on an entry level. For most jobs,
like clippers and
bud tenders. I'm not sure. Some clippers, I don't know how that works out so much. I mean, usually if you're working for a dispensary as a clipper, then you're usually getting paid good. Sometimes maybe they pay for the job as an independent contractor.
I'm definitely interested because
if
as
you're employed,
youth growing up in Colorado, industry to be in right now.
Yeah. How old are you?
That's why I'm here right now. I'm 20, but I turned 21 in 2 months.
You turned 21 in 2 months. I was going to say I know somebody looking for some people right now, though.
Awesome.
But it is great. I mean, it's like all of a sudden you're 21 years old. It's like, hey man, now I can go ahead and work in a dispensary, or I can go ahead and work.
It's better just to be doing this while I figure out my life than being one of these kids who are just going, what do I want to do?
Well, one of the things I like to see about this is what we're doing is we're going to be creating a group of people that will also become very educated on the cannabis plant, and we're creating a movement and a people and a culture that know about the cannabis plant on a medicating side, where they can actually, if you're working in a good dispensary and doing some training, you can actually learn how to medicate various ailments.
The more people that learn, get more educated about weed and the propaganda that came with it, might be able to cite and realize when they're being fed other propaganda. It's just, it's awesome.
Well, the Colorado Symphony Orchestra is also.
They're making that weed concert.
They are. They got a letter, and I'm interested in hearing because I heard it's still back on, and I just got an invite about it too. What's that? It's invite only. That's why. So it had to be a private event.
Oh.
And I actually just got my invite today.
Awesome.
So I might have to attend that event because it sounds like fun.
Yeah, that's cool what the symphony's doing. They're also, I don't really like Pretty Lights, but they're doing a show with Pretty Lights this year at Red Rocks.
But Pretty Lights is big, man. They're a big company, man. They put on a lot of big shows, and I'm not surprised that Pretty Lights would become part of that as well.
It's just awesome. The whole state's going, because I heard something like what happened with that. It was on, and then people got pissed. Like, symphonies and weed shouldn't be together, and they
weed doesn't have class. You can't have class and weed at the same time. Actually, you can, but whatever. This is good news in Colorado. I mean, that's what I wanted to start seeing, and I'm not surprised that I'm seeing it, but it's good to see this being reported upon. Is the statistics start not like really lying, unless you're fudging them, but it's easy to look through that if you do your research. And it's not surprising that crime is down. It's not surprising that violent crime is down. Can we say that we attribute all of that to the legalization of cannabis? No, you can't. But there is a correlation there, I think.
Mm-hmm. And it's just a proof because people have been thinking since it's been illegal, there have been stoners all around the world have thought maybe if it was legal,
exactly,
it would help with the bad stuff.
And it does. I mean, that's the thing. And there's, there are arguments in other states like Florida. I've been seeing that they're fighting the legalization battle over there. There's a group fighting it and put up a website. And one of the things that, it was a sheriff's department that says they're afraid that we're going to be emboldening the drug dealers to make more money. And it's like, no, you asshole. you're doing the opposite. The drug dealers are going to make less money because you're going to be taking out of their pockets and putting into business people's pockets. And here's the thing. There are people who are existing in the industry who are successful business people now that were drug dealers in the past. But actually, most of the business owners in this industry were never on the black market side of things. And there are some people that complain about that because like, oh, the roots are gone and everything. And it's like, well, I mean, there are some that were...
People correlate with them being in the black market before it was legal as them being bad and scary.
No,
There's
a
lot
bad
of really chill
No. But
people who just were trying to get by.
But it's very easy, I mean, not easy, but like much simpler, I should say, to be a dealer on the black market than to be a dealer in a regulated market.
All you need
it's
is
a lot harder.
Baggies and a scale.
Yeah, the scale is bigger as far as the scale size of what you have to do when you grow. You know, the cost is there. There's more legal risk because you're putting yourself out there. So, you know, there are a lot of, you know, people who were great dealers back in the day and great growers and stuff are not able to like take as much advantage of this market as as you would think they'd be able to. And you know, to some extent that's bad, but to some extent that was a black market model. You have to adapt. And you know, you can't do things like you did on the black market anymore. You know, and so that makes it, you know, a little bit different. You know, I know there are a lot of people within the industry that grumble about for the good old days, and at the same time, they were the same ones saying, "Hey, we wish it was legal because this is what would happen." You know, be careful what you wish for. Things change.
It's good where it's at. It's gonna take time to get out to all the kinks.
Yeah, but it is annoying to me when I hear that argument, like, oh, well, we don't want to make it easier for kids to have access. And it's like, no, kids have easier access now. Yes. Will they have access from maybe their parents' cupboard? Possibly. Yeah. Just like they do with alcohol now.
Yeah.
But that's up to the parents to police them and lock that property up. It's not up to you to tell everybody that they can't do it because we're not adults in this world. You know, we should be responsible for our responsibilities ourselves, in my opinion. And, you know, to me, the gateway to other drugs, they always use that gateway argument for marijuana.
It's alcohol.
No, the gateway is prohibition. All right, and here's why. You could say it's alcohol. You could say it's sugar. You could say it's caffeine. What's the first drug kids get is usually sugar or caffeine, you know. But really, it's prohibition itself.
Making it seem bad?
No, because when you do prohibition, then everything becomes available on the black market. Now, when you go into a dispensary, you're not going to be able to buy heroin. You're not going to be able to buy cocaine. You're not going to be able to buy acid, Molly, special, you know, ketamine, any of that crap. You know, you can't get it there because that's all the access. You couldn't get marijuana from a liquor store. So when you sell that one product, that's all you're doing. But when I go to a dealer on the streets, and this has been offered to me back in the black market days, and you're buying some cannabis from them, they might be like, hey, man, I also have some opium, or I have some heroin if you want, or would you like some ecstasy? Would you like this? Prohibition is the gateway to further usage of drugs because that shows you have more access. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, there are drugs. Like if alcohol was illegal today, and they were in a speakeasy and they were selling you alcohol, you would probably have access to marijuana as well and other drugs. It would be the same thing. So that's the problem is the way people think about it is like, oh, this drug makes me want to take this drug. And, you know, of course, that's a stupid argument because when you smoke weed, you're not like, wow, I want to do some coke.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't really work that way.
Not like that.
Yeah. But it's prohibition that allows it. So that's the biggest issue for me.
If the kids want to get it, they'll get it. It's just how you have it regulated and how you have it for the people.
But it's easier to get it. It's really easier to get it when it's illegal. That's the thing.
Yes.
But you know, there's no regulations to a drug dealer.
Exactly.
They do whatever they want. Let's see. I have another one here I wanted to talk about. There's a little bit of issue in the Nevada Supreme Court. They're voting, the Nevada State Bar is voting to allow lawyers to give advice to marijuana dispensary owners because up to that point, they were not allowed to give advice because the ruling, the way they looked at it was, you're not allowed to give legal advice in regards to breaking the law. So they looked at it like, if you know that your client is a drug dealer, you know, on the illegal sense, you can't give him legal advice as to how to like stay in business or how to help his business. So, but now they're looking to vote. They're voting right now, I guess, to basically consider this association rule and change it to allow them to be legal representation for marijuana businesses. That's interesting because that hasn't been an issue here in Colorado, and I don't think it's been an issue in California, unless maybe it was a bar vote. I've never heard of the bar voting for it, the state bar here. It seems like it just happened. And it's just like they were, lawyers are there. And we'll have to ask Warren Edson that question sometime offline because he might be able to answer that question better. But that's interesting that that's a law going on. But that's a movement. They are also saying in Nevada that if you are in the gaming industry, you are not allowed to be in the marijuana industry. So I know there's tons of casino owners out there that are probably really disappointed because they were like, and I'm a little disappointed because I was hoping, you never know, you're hoping to see, a casino pop up, like a marijuana themed casino.
That'd be awesome.
Wouldn't that be badass? And then you're able to, like, instead of free alcohol, that would be the most popular casino ever. No more free alcohol, just free joints or free vaporizers in the casino for you if you're gambling. They would probably, that would be a mess.
And you could
be a mess.
You could still get booze, but you'd have to pay.
But you'd have to pay. The security would have the best job ever. They'd be like, this is easy. Nobody can lie when they're high.
You just have to wake people up.
Yeah. Playing poker high is not necessarily recommended either. So
it's hard to have a good poker face.
Really hard to have a good poker face.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
no.
Dude, I forgot I'm playing poker. That's funny. Well, we have to go for another break. And we'll be back in just a minute to go over a little bit of hemp news.
Are you a medical marijuana patient or interested in finding out how to become one? Contact Mile High Wellness, where your care is our concern. Conveniently located on Hamden and Tamarack in the Whole Foods parking lot behind Proof of the Pudding. Mile High Wellness offers a wide variety of edibles, hashes, and some of Colorado's top strains. Mile High Wellness, where your care is our concern. 3525 South Tamarack, Suite 110, on the corner of Hamden and Tamarack. 720-382-8516. Mile High Wellness, where your care is our concern.
Are you a runner? Are you a runner who supports marijuana legalization? Run on Grass is a group of athletes actively seeking to change our marijuana laws. We speak the truth about cannabis, bringing the message through our feet to new ears. Check out runongrass.com to find out more about us, our events, and how to join up or how to sponsor a runner. If you're in the Denver area, please join us for runs or start a group in your area. Running not your thing? Any sport can do it. On grass. Runongrass.com.
National Cannabis Industry Association would like to thank its members who represent the leading professional businesses in America's emerging legal cannabis market. NCIA is the only organization that has unified legitimate cannabis business across the nation to fight for real reform in Washington, D.C. For more information or to make your business a member, visit us online at thecannabisindustry.org.
All right, we're back. Hanging with my intern, Gabe. Just hanging out, man. He's doing a good job, I think, He's got to love this internship, by the way. How many internships are you able to, hang out, smoke some nice bud, and get on the radio and just shoot the shit? I don't know if I just got you in trouble for that, did I?
Nope.
No, awesome. That's cool.
This is Colorado.
So what I want to talk about this time, and this is a little hemp news, while we have... Well, first, there's a hemp planting that's been delayed in Kentucky because of this legal fight. All right, and what's happening right now is, as of yesterday, and I'm going to be almost reading this because I haven't had time to write my own little surmise of this yet. So this is from Huffington Post Politics edition from yesterday. But Kentucky sues the DEA to free its impounded hemp seeds. And so Kentucky on Wednesday is suing the federal government. They sued the federal government for return of agricultural hemp seeds seized by the DEA, of course, after the agency told state officials they would have to apply for a permit to get them back. So the DEA, Kentucky has legalized hemp growth. Hemp production.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yes, Kentucky has legalized it, and the federal government kind of said it was okay. So, and that was the way they kind of legalized it. It's like, we want to grow hemp as soon as the federal government says
that's
it's okay
awesome
for us.
Because Kentucky's a major.
Yeah, and so in the Farm Bill, the federal government said for those states who have already legalized hemp production, you can go ahead and grow it now. And also because of that, Colorado, obviously, we had hemp grown last year before the federal government said it was okay, because that was how our law was written, which I love. It was kind of like, a little, flipping
middle
bird.
finger.
Yeah, a little bit to the feds, and I love it. But
it's hemp. It's not
exactly. And they were like, "Look, we're already gone this far with marijuana.
All hemp is going to do is piss off the oil companies and all the big wigs.
Yeah, it's going to piss off a lot of people. But and so what happened was they confiscated something like a 250-pound shipment of seeds from Italy that the state planned to use for industrial hemp growing pilot project. So this is just their pilot project. They're not talking about mass production yet.
They were just going to test it.
Yeah, and it was legalized for research in the recent Farm Bill, but the DEA contends importation remains illegal on Tuesday and demanded Kentucky apply for a permit. So because Kentucky didn't go to the DEA and say, give us a permit for these seeds, the DEA is kind of, the DEA is like, come on, give us respect,
Dicking them around.
Yeah, and they think, what was it? What's her name? Always forget her name off the top of my head because she just annoys me. But the spokesperson for the DEA, and I'll have to scroll down here to find her name again, basically said it was a really sad day when they allowed that farm bill to go through for hemp.
What?
Yeah, she did. Yeah, it was really, yeah.
Oh, yeah, the plant that may look like marijuana but doesn't get you high and is just going to build hemp bricks and stuff to build homes for people. Yeah, that's so depressing, lady.
Yeah, and I love this guy, this agricultural commissioner, James Corner, because he told the Huffington Post, he's like, he didn't want to sue them. He says, but they've been misled, and it's obviously a stall tactic done by the DEA to kind of slow them down. He said, we have research, we have farmers who want to grow it, we have processors who want to process it.
They're basically just stalling the inevitable at this point.
Yeah, and he says, we have researchers who want to research it. He said, we bought and paid for the seeds. He said, there's a desperate need in Kentucky to find an alternative to tobacco.
So when they were coming in from Italy, the DEA swooped them?
Basically, sounds like it. It doesn't go into the details of when they were confiscated. Said,
is there a bunch of hemp in Italy?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
There's hemp in every G20 state, basically.
Besides United States, because we're dumb.
But it said Comer did announce earlier Tuesday that a deal had been struck and that the DEA would be releasing the seeds. He said, it looks like we've run this around, he said then. And then the DEA completely reversed course from this morning. He said, I think we just needed to get their attention. Yet, freedom for the seeds still remains in question.
The second you sue them, they're like, oh, okay.
Yep.
Now we know you're serious. Here you go.
But yeah, there was a DOJ official who asked not to be named, said that the issue at hand has always been the importation of hemp seeds, which the laws written didn't exactly explicitly authorize. We have been working with the state to make sure they comply with existing procedures. So, here's the thing. You're talking with the state. You don't take it away from the state like, meh, we have it. You didn't ask our permission. You could say, look, why don't you guys, we're going to give you a permit for this because you already paid for it. We're going to allow for this. Instead of being like this, like you're trying to exert your authority on the state, even though the Farm Bill allows it, but they didn't allow the importation, so they didn't specify that, which is a little short-sighted on the Farm Bill because you got to recognize that you need to import hemp seeds.
So when Kentucky made the bill, why didn't they make it like Colorado? Because they thought the federal government was going to work with them?
Well, it's surprising. I'm not sure why it is that they're going after Kentucky first. I think what they're doing is they're going after Kentucky because the way Kentucky imported the seeds was probably a little too straightforward. Because the thing is, in Colorado, the seeds kind of came from the seed fairy, quote unquote. They didn't really talk about where it was sourced from. So it was almost one of those I'd rather beg for forgiveness and ask for permission, but they can just be like, well, we got the seeds. They were donated to us. We don't know how they got here. I don't know how it all came about, but it was kind of like one of those, whenever I would ask people, where'd the seeds come from? It was one of the first questions I would always ask somebody who was kind of in the know.
They'd always kind of like skate around it.
Raise their eyebrows and be like, we're not really quite sure. Some things could have happened. Some people talked and some exchanges were made, and it was like.
It was Tony's cousin.
It was Tony's, hey, and I appreciate that they had to do that.
That's why Colorado is badass.
But here's the thing that's nice about that. After that first year, really, they probably still have to source some seeds. You can still make that argument. We're sourcing the seeds from their initial crops and we're growing more. So we're creating our own seed bank. And that is what's developing here in Colorado on the hemp front. So there's this work on developing a seed bank.
So if Kentucky has made hemp legal, who's next? And it's awesome because
there's multiple states. There's multiple states that made hemp legal, and
I just can't wait till it's actually growing and we can go on a road trip and just drive by huge hemp fields.
Let me see if I can get the list of hemp legal states for us here because I don't want to get
Kentucky's surprising, but they are a farmer-type state.
Yeah, they are. And Kentucky's been big on it. In fact, Mitch McConnell and Rand Paul, the senators for Kentucky, have both come out in major favor of hemp. And so that's, because I think they recognize they're trying to do what their constituents want. And Kentucky has always been the hotbed for hemp back in the day. So they know they can grow that product better than probably anybody else in the country.
Oh, yeah, totally.
And there's still feral hemp that grows there, but it's it's hard to get all of those seeds. You don't know where they came from. You don't know the source. You don't know what climates they you know what climate they worked in. Obviously, you're in Kentucky. I'm trying to find the list of. I found stupid pop-ups on some of these things. All right. Here are the 10 states. So the states that have allowed the growing of hemp, though the federal drug law has blocked active cultivation in most. I love how they say in most. And basically, eliminating Colorado from that because we don't give – because Colorado's like the honey badger of the country. We don't give a fuck. But, Colorado, Washington, California, Kentucky, Maine, Montana, North Dakota, Oregon, Vermont, and West Virginia.
That's a good list.
It's a nice list. And you know what it is? There's a lot of farmers and agricultural areas on that list. There's plenty of other
states. Because all those
states
states knew there was profit to be made.
Absolutely. And some of those states obviously are states that have allowed cannabis production. Some of them haven't, though.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at West Virginia, North Dakota, and Kentucky.
Yeah.
And those are the states.
That's why I was surprised when you said Kentucky.
Yeah, but like I said, Kentucky, I think there's actually a town in Kentucky that used to be called Hemp Town because it was the number one crop in that town. I think it's Kentucky. Or is that in Kansas? I always confuse stories from both of those. Isn't that sad? I know. That's messed up. Sorry, Kentuckians and Kansans. Is that Kansans? I think it is Kansans. I'm rambling on that one now. But
as a Coloradan, I just see them as flat states.
But there are tons of people going on the hemp side. Here's another interesting little side note on the hemp story, and I don't have a source up for this to really give you really good information on it, but here's the general gist, and you can look it up, is, we just passed in a banking law that we talked about last week with Samantha here in Colorado. And on the banking law, they're basically saying we can create like a state credit bureau that could become the banking facility for marijuana dispensaries and
I heard about
businesses, which is huge. It's great. They're saying, look, there's no solution that the state is offering us. The FDIC is not really allowing it. The banks are all saying no, even though
figure out
even though the
situation.
Fed said go right ahead and bank with these guys, the bank said, no, we're not gonna because it's not enough money in it for us to take the headache that it would take to do this. And so, Colorado passed this banking law, which is a great move, I think, on our side for a temporary fix. I think at some point you're going to need some larger funding and bigger banks to be able to jump in.
But once more states cross over, that'll be a lot easier.
But here's the interesting thing on this banking rule is it started out just as a marijuana, and then somebody said, well, wait a minute, what about hemp? What about for the farmers? And all of a sudden, the Colorado Banking Association was like, oh, no, we can't allow banking for hemp. And it was like, wait a minute, so you're okay with marijuana, but you're not okay with a crop that doesn't get you high and is going to be grown by farmers. And I think that's really interesting.
What the hell?
Isn't it just crazy sometimes the hemp thing is like, it cracks me up that it's like, I mean, that is amazing to me.
George Washington was getting stoned off this crap a long time ago. I knew about it.
But they're allowing marijuana. Again, they're allowing the marijuana. They want marijuana dispensaries to bank with them. But they don't.
It's an oxymoron, literally.
It's crazy that they don't. They're like, but yeah, don't clump hemp into the same credit, bureau. And it's like, well, these farmers might need some money capital up front to be able to invest in growing their crop. They're going to save money in the long run. They're going to make money in the long run if they grow a good crop for hemp. But at the beginning stages, just like any other business, it's like you got to come up with some capital. So they need these banks. I love that they added it in, but it's just amazing to me that the Banking Association says no to it. It's probably got to do with some money. Probably they don't see as much money in supporting farmers, so they're trying to keep it out. But honestly, in the long run, there could be tons more money in supporting the hemp industry here in Colorado.
And they may need some money for the startup, but once they get their money,
once they get the supply
revenue going,
exactly.
the money will come in bunches, and they can say "F you."
But you're also looking at
whoever they
money.
want.
You're also looking at significant investment for the processing plants for hemp, because the farmers are going to need it, but you're going to need some for processing. You're going to need some for distribution, some for creating the actual products, and they're going to need some money and some funding to get that industry going. Now, I actually think that the hemp industry will still be able to bank with just regular banks. I don't think they're going to have as much issue. You're going to have issue with getting maybe crop insurance. So that's going to be one of those things. And I've asked about that before. I know there's some solutions out there for some crop insurance, but I guarantee you they're paying way higher than they would for any other crop.
Oh, yeah, totally.
We only have about 5 minutes left, so I'm going to do a little talk about this issue of the magazine. I might have a little mini rant about something that happened to me on Facebook, but I won't be naming names on that one. But, I want to say, first of all, the new issue is a great issue. We cover a lot of great topics in this one. So I definitely want everybody to try to pick it up if you can at any dispensary. They've already been dropped. If there are any left, we do go out fast. Out of 30,000 copies, they run out within like a couple of days. So it's kind of a bummer, but we do have all of these articles are going to be made available on our website online. So you can check that out at thcmag.com. But, the next issue is one I've been really wanting, my staff has been working on, is the cancer issue. We're going to be doing a comprehensive look at cancer and its relation to cannabis and the economy and stuff like that. Yeah. So really light topic, next issue. It's not just cancer, but it is going to be a lot of focus on that in our editorial this next issue. And we just wanted to get,
awesome.
Well, we need to get as much, information out there as possible when it comes to cannabis being a cure for cancer, and it's being largely ignored.
The stuff cures cancer, people. Don't ignore it.
It's ridiculous. It is. So we're going to do that. So definitely take a look out for our June issue as well.
You can smoke your cigarettes that give you cancer, or smoke your pot.
On a side note, I just want to I have to do a little rant because I have an issue with the way society is today. And when in terms of social media, like we utilize social media on the Hemp Connoisseur, we get some fun things out there. We get a lot of news out there, and it's very much focused on that. Obviously we have an agenda, to further education on the cannabis plant, whether it's marijuana or the hemp side of it. And so that's what my social media team does a really good job of. And of course, they throw some fun stuff up there as well. And to me, social media is a great place to communicate with people and all of that. But it doesn't seem to me a very educated way to bitch out your grievances when it comes to things. And I'm not going to get too detailed, but somebody bitched out one of my staff and, mentioned that where they worked because they didn't feel like they were being treated as, properly. And it's one of those things that, like, being the person that the buck stops at, anybody who works either as an adjunct employee or as a full-time staff writer knows that they need to come to me if they have a grievance with anybody else in the company. And that didn't happen in this case. And what it speaks to me about more, because I'm not going to get into the details of this because, it is what it is. But it's that we are kind of turning into this weird culture where we feel like it's more. We're so afraid of, in my opinion, individual one-on-one confrontation. We're afraid of one-on-one confrontation. So instead, we deflect how we're feeling to an open forum of people on Facebook where they have, and these people are going to support you.
Notice me.
And it's like, here's my side of a story. And that way you can root for me and point out whoever it is I'm talking about is the evil person because you're going to believe, and there are followers on Facebook who will believe.
It's scary that it's transferred from my generation up to other generations.
Well, it had. That's what that's one of the statements is this person is actually not a young person and somebody I considered a friend. And like I said, I don't want to get into more details about it because I'm not trying to air my grievances about this person on here. I actually called this person up immediately and had a conversation with him about this. And they even admitted, you're right. I probably should have communicated with you instead of doing this. And I never say negative things on Facebook.
You probably know this from living in New York that people there are much more straightforward with it.
And maybe is that part of it because I'm an East Coaster?
Everybody in New York might be considered an asshole, but it's just because they tell you how they feel about it
right away, and it's like let's move on now. All right. And to me, when you have a confrontation, it's a chance to evolve as a human being. But when you're not evolving on Facebook. Whoever you are out there who likes to complain about somebody and not confront the person that is bothering you, and you complain about them on Facebook, you're not evolving.
You could be
as a
the
human
coolest
being.
person in the world on Facebook.
Yeah, you're just trying to enroll
the
people
real
in your
world's off your phone.
You're trying to enroll people in your own personal story that is a woe is me story, and look at me, I'm being put down by the man, instead of going after whoever the man is in your situation and saying, look, this is how I feel, this is how I feel you've been treated, blah, 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 blah. Instead of being straightforward and honest now, we have a whole society of people that go on the social media to bitch out. Where, there are activists that do it when they don't like the way businesses are running and things. Instead of having a communication with the business itself, they'll bitch about how they act on Facebook. And then they have, of course, their followers. They're going to follow them and listen to them.
And there's pros and cons of Facebook. Facebook can educate you about a lot of important things. It's why we got the iCannabis Facebook. It's why there's all sorts of other Facebooks. But when you take it to do the exact opposite, it's just
to me it's a great forum for communicating ideas. It is, but you know what, when your ideas are generally on the negative side, or if you're being negative in your ideas, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to spread hate or angst, or are you trying to spread awareness? There's a difference, and I think that a lot of people out there might have personal gripes with people that they just want to bitch about them on Facebook because it's easier. It's actually safer because you can do it from your computer. You don't have to look a person in the eye and have a conversation.
Go vent to your diary or your girlfriend or whoever you want to vent to. Don't vent to your computer.
Yeah, and there, this happened to us. This has happened to other friends of ours. And they've asked me to write. There's like one particular person out there that I'm not going to mention that speaks negatively about some people that we as a company are in a good relationship. Me as a person, I'm friends with, and they've asked me, "Hey, you need to do a piece on this person." And like some people on my staff have said, "Yeah, do it," but I've actually refused to do it because, first of all, then I'm giving that person more people to look them up. And then all of a sudden they get more followers, and that actually can, whether they're following them because they want to watch them be assholes, or they're following them because they want to be part of that hate brigade that they're creating. But you're still making them think the more followers they have, the more validity they think they have in their own voice. And so I don't want to give anybody that kind of publicity. So, as a publisher of our magazine, it's just not, but what I do want to speak about, what we may speak about is the fact that there is a society, even within the industry here in the cannabis industry, where people will try them in the social media forum, whether, on companies and people within the industry and hurt them, they'll trust one text or one thing that they see from one person who's not a reliable source. And all of a sudden it goes viral and everybody goes, well, this company's terrible because of this, when it may not have happened.
Yeah.
That could have been a disgruntled employee that's just trying to ruin them. And it's it's one of those things that
I am opposed to the whole social media age. It's
a scary age, man. It is.
Like Jay-Z was just reading about this on the internet. Jay-Z gets attacked by his girlfriend, and it's everywhere. Or his girlfriend's sister, and it's all over the internet.
By Beyonce's sister?
Yeah.
That's funny.
My girlfriend's sister has been pissed at me a bunch of times.
So what? It's like, who cares? That's the other issue, is there are things that we born as stories out there that aren't really stories anymore. And that's one of those things that you find, the decline of mainstream media in the last 30 years has been it's been pretty impressive to watch and scary at the same time. But anyway, look, we got to go. We've actually run over time. If you didn't want the all news hour, I apologize. Like I said, I guess our Bongathon guys smoked almost one too many. Oh, they're coming next week now. I think I already have somebody for next week, brother. We'll have to switch them up. Yeah. So we'll be seeing Bongathon in a couple of weeks, I think. I'll have to take a look at our schedule. Anyway, until next time, thanks for listening to THC Radio.
Yep.
Peace, love, and hempiness.